My brother Vincent sat at the head of the table next to my father. Of course, he always did. Even now, at 46, with his thinning hair and expanding waistline, he was still the golden child. The one who'd gotten the new car at 16 while I'd been told to save up for your own, Evelyn. It builds character. The one who'd had his law school tuition paid in full while I'd taken out loans for my computer science degree that I was still paying off at 38. Evie, pass the cranberry sauce, my mother said, not looking at me. I slid the dish across the table. She didn't say thank you. She never did. So Vincent, my father began carving the turkey with the kind of ceremonial gravity that suggested he was performing surgery rather than slicing poultry. Tell us about this new client. The tech one. My brother puffed up instantly, like a pigeon displaying its chest. Oh, they're huge, billion-dollar valuation. They're looking at me for their entire legal portfolio, and I'm talking 7 figures, easy. Wonderful. My mother beamed at him like he just cured cancer. That's my boy. I stabbed a green bean with my fork. The bean was overcooked and limp. Everything about this dinner was overcooked and limp. The conversation, the food, the way my family's eyes slid past me like I was a piece of furniture they'd forgotten to put away. And what about you, Evelyn? My Aunt Lauren asked, and I almost choked on my water from the shock of being addressed. Still doing whatever it is you do? Cybersecurity, I said. I work for computers, my cousin Raymond interrupted, waving a hand dismissively. She works with computers. We get it, Evie. Very technical, very mysterious. Actually, I'm the lead architect for her. Remember when she was 16 and she took apart the family desktop? Vincent laughed, the sound grating against my ears. Dad was so mad, and she couldn't even put it back together. Mom had to hire someone to fix it, Lauren added, shaking her head like I committed a federal crime. I put my fork down. I was 16, and I did put it back together. It just took me 3 tries. 3 tries, Vincent repeated, as if this proved his point. Anyway, honey, you don't need to explain your job. We all know you're still figuring things out. This from a man who'd been figuring out his legal practice for 20 years and still relied on my father's connections to stay afloat. But I didn't say that. I'd learned over 3 decades that saying anything only made it worse. So, Evie, my mother said, finally turning to me with the expression she reserved for performing minimum parental obligation, are you still living in that studio? 1 bedroom, I corrected, in Brooklyn. Brooklyn, Lauren said, her nose wrinkling like I'd said sewage treatment plant. Isn't that, unsafe? It's fine. I've been there 7 years. 7 years. Vincent's eyebrows shot up. Evie, you're 38. Don't you think it's time to buy something? Or is that not in the cards? He said it like the cards were something I'd folded on long ago, like I'd simply given up on the game and was content to watch from the sidelines. I opened my mouth, closed it, looked down at my plate. This was what they did. They asked questions that weren't really questions. They were assertions, statements dressed up as curiosity. You're still renting. You're still single? You're still doing that weird computer thing? 7 years ago, when I left this dinner table with tears burning in my throat, I promised myself I'd never come back. I'd gotten my master's at Columbia. I'd worked insane hours. I built things I couldn't even tell them about because they'd never understand. And I'd done it all without their help, their money, or even their belief in me. But then my cousin Sarah had called. Evie, please. Mom's been talking about you nonstop. She wants to see you. Everyone does. It's been so long. Sarah was the only one who'd ever made the effort. She'd visited me in New York twice, asked about my work with actual curiosity, remembered my birthday even when my own mother forgot. So when she said, please, I'd said, okay. I regretted it 30 seconds into this dinner. Anyway, Vincent said, straightening his tie like he was about to deliver a keynote address, I'm thinking of starting my own firm, boutique practice, high-end corporate clients. The kind of thing that actually makes real money. Wonderful. My father beamed. That's the entrepreneurial spirit I like to see. I just need some initial capital, Vincent continued, his eyes sliding around the table like he was counting invisible coins. Mom, Dad, I was thinking maybe you could help with the down payment. And Lauren, Raymond, if you're interested in investing. The table erupted in excited chatter about opportunities and projections and brand positioning. I stabbed another green bean. It was still limp. Evelyn, my mother said suddenly, and everyone went quiet. They all turned to look at me, and my mother smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. What about you, dear? Vincent's planning something real. Something grown up. Could you contribute? I blinked. Contribute? To his firm? To the family, she laughed, but it sounded sharp. We all help each other. That's what family does. 26 years ago, when I needed $500 for my first computer programming course, my mother had said, we can't just throw money at every hobby you have, Evelyn. 2 years ago, Vincent had bought a sports car he didn't need. He hadn't even asked for help, and my father had just handed in the keys. I'll think about it, I said, because I had to say something. I couldn't say what I actually thought. I couldn't say, I've been giving you my entire salary for 9 years because you decided I was your retirement plan, and I was too stupid to say no. That right there. That was the truth they didn't know. The truth I'd spent years hiding. The night I got back from the coding boot camp, the one I'd scraped together every penny to pay for, I'd sat down at this very table and announced I'd gotten a junior position at a cybersecurity startup. My mother's face had gone pale. Then she'd said, well, I hope you'll be helping us with the mortgage now. Evie, we've been struggling, and you've been living here for free. I've been living there for free because I'd been 17 and in high school, but I'd said yes. I'd said yes to everything. I'd been saying yes for 20 years. The gift exchange came after dessert. IT was a Carter family tradition, the Christmas portion of Thanksgiving. My mother always called it because why wait a whole month to give presents? The real answer was that she liked watching people open things in front of an audience. She liked seeing their faces, cataloging their reactions, keeping mental score of who'd given more and who'd given less. Let's start with the children, Lauren announced, which meant the adults. Raymond handed out gift bags with elaborate ribbons. His wife, Monica, handed out gift bags with different elaborate ribbons. Vincent passed out slim black boxes that probably contained watches. My mother distributed handmade photo books she'd spent months assembling, full of family pictures that didn't include me past age 14, because after that point she'd apparently stopped documenting my existence. Everyone was opening things. There was laughter and gasps and, oh, you shouldn't have. The crinkle of wrapping paper. The pop of bows being untied. I sat in my folding chair with my hands in my lap. Nobody had given me anything. That was fine. I wasn't here for presents. I'd known this would happen. I'd known it for 20 years. And yet somehow, watching my mother hand my cousin a diamond pendant while my father gave my brother a check I couldn't even see the zeros on. Somehow the old familiar pain still found its way into my chest. Evelyn. My mother looked up from the chaos. Are you all right? Fine, I said. I think maybe you forgot someone. She looked around the table, confused. Who? Me, Mom. You forgot me. The room went silent. Even the crinkling stopped. Oh, my mother's hand flew to her mouth. Her face did a complicated dance of surprise and embarrassment and something else. Something that looked almost like satisfaction. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Your present must have gotten lost in the mail, or maybe we just. Evie's a big girl, Vincent said, too quickly. She doesn't need presents. She's an adult. You're right, I said, standing up. I don't need presents, but I brought one for myself. Everyone stared at me. They watched me reach into my purse, the old leather one I'd bought at a thrift store 5 years ago because I'd been saving every cent for something else, and I pulled out a key. Not a car key, not a house key, not a key to a building I'd purchased with my own name on the title. A building I paid for with a salary I'd been hiding from them for years. The salary they'd never asked about. The job they'd never bothered to understand. This, I said, holding the key up, is my apartment, the one I bought 3 years ago. The one I'm still paying the mortgage on because I refused to use my life savings for a down payment like the rest of you seem to think is normal that I bought it, cashed at $1.4 million. The table went silent in a way I'd never heard before. It was the silence of a room where every single person had just realized they'd made a terrible mistake. 1.4 million? Vincent's voice cracked. Where did you get that kind of money? From my job, I said. The one you all mock. The one you don't understand. The one where I'm paid 6 figures plus equity. You're a secretary, Raymond said, looking pale. I'm the lead security architect for Titan Tech, I said. I build the systems that protect billions of dollars in data that I make more in a month than most of you make in a year. And I've been hiding it because I didn't want to make any of you uncomfortable. It was the most honest thing I'd ever said to them, and watching their faces, I realized it was also the most devastating. The noise came back after about 30 seconds. Everyone started talking at once. Evie, this is wonderful. My mother's voice was high-pitched, manic. You have to tell us everything. 1.4 million. We're so proud of you. Slow down, Vincent said, his lawyer's instincts kicking in. What kind of equity? What's your contract look like? You might want to let me review it. I can handle my own contracts, I said. But Evie, think of what this means for the family. Lauren had her hands clasped together like she was praying. You can help Vincent with his firm. 20,000. That's nothing to you now. 20,000 and he's off and running. 20,000, I repeated. That's what you want. A gift. A loan, Vincent said quickly. A business loan. I'll pay you back. You still owe me $900 from when we were 16, I said. Vincent's mouth opened, closed. His face flushed red. Evelyn, my father said, and there it was, that tone of voice he used when he was about to pronounce judgment. If you can help your brother, you should help your brother. That's what family does. I've been paying your mortgage for 9 years, I said quietly. Every single month. I've given you $52,000, Dad. You never said thank you. You never even mentioned it. The silence that followed the statement was even worse than the first one. My father went white. That's not. It is. I have the receipts. Nobody asked you to do that, my mother said. Yes, I said. I knowed. That's the point. I gave you gifts I'd never get thanked for, and I gave you time and money and attention you never deserved. I've been trying to earn your love for 38 years, and the only way I was ever going to stop trying was to realize I never needed it in the first place. I gathered my purse. Where are you going? My mother said. We haven't even opened the pies. Enjoy the pies, I said. All of them. They're yours. I drove back to New York that night. I drove through the darkness with tears blurring my vision and a weight I had known I was carrying slowly dissolving from my shoulders. By the time I hit the Brooklyn Bridge, I'd stopped crying. I pulled out my phone and blocked every number except Sarah's. Then I sent her a message. I'm okay. I'm free. Her response came within seconds. You did it. I'm so proud of you. I was okay. I was free. I spent the first week after Thanksgiving in a state of strange, buoyant peace. It felt like I'd finally put down a suitcase I'd been carrying for 38 years, one packed with other people's expectations, their disappointments, their casual cruelties. The silence in my Brooklyn apartment was golden, and phone calls, and emails, and one asking me for money they'd never repay. The brownstone had cost me $1.4 million, and I paid cash point 3 years of scrimping, investing, and saying no to everything except my 401k and my stock options. 3 years of driving a used Honda while my coworkers leased Teslas, point 3 years of telling my mother I was still in a one-bedroom because the truth would have been too complicated to explain. Now the truth was out, and I felt lighter than I had in decades. My apartment was on the third floor of a converted brownstone in Park Slope, 2 bedrooms, a study, and a kitchen that opened onto a small terrace where I grew tomatoes in the summer. The building had a courtyard shared with 4 other units. My neighbors were a retired schoolteacher, a graphic designer who traveled constantly, a gay couple with a rescue greyhound, and a man my age who divorced his corporate job to become a woodworker. We had a building WhatsApp group for noise complaints and package notifications. IT was the most functional community I'd ever been part of. On the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, I came home to find a man sitting on my front stoop. He was tall, with graying temples and the kind of casual, expensive clothing that said, "I don't try, but I still look better than you." He had a bottle of wine in one hand and a sheepish expression that made me want to punch him immediately. "Evelyn," Vincent said, standing up. "You look great. Really, you're glowing." "Vincent, what are you doing here?" "I took a train. Thought we could talk." "You took a train from Baltimore to Brooklyn to talk." "Dad's taking it hard, Evie. He hasn't slept since Thanksgiving. Mom cries every night." I unlocked the front door, stepped inside, and left him on the stoop. "Evie," he caught the door before it closed. "Come on, please. 10 minutes. I looked at him. Really, look, he was wearing the same navy blazer I'd seen him in 100 times, the same Rolex our father had given him for his 40th. The same air of entitlement that had followed him from childhood into middle age, never once dented by any consequence of his own making. 10 minutes, I said, inside, and you're not spending the night." "Wouldn't dream of it." I led him up the 3 flights of stairs, no elevator, because brownstones are old and charming and also impossible for anyone with mobility issues, and unlocked my apartment door. He stepped inside and stopped dead. "Evie," he breathed. The apartment was small but gorgeous. Exposed brick walls, white plank hardwood floors, a kitchen with a marble island, and a 6-burner gas stove I'd saved 3 years to buy. My bookshelves were full. My art was original, and my view looked out onto a row of flowering magnolia trees that would bloom in April. "Jesus, Evie, this is incredible." "Thanks." "Dad said you bought it cash. Is that true?" 1.4 million. Cash. I'm not paying interest to a bank when I don't have to. Vincent turned to look at me. His expression had shifted from surprise to something more calculating. I'd seen that look before. It was the same look he'd had when he told me about his boutique law firm. "Can I sit?" he asked. I gestured to the couch. He sat. I didn't offer him anything to drink. "Mom and Dad don't really understand your job," he began, as if this were a neutral observation. "No one in that house understands my job, including you." "Fair enough." He held up his hands. "Look, I'm not here to fight. I'm here to apologize. I was an asshole. We all were. You deserved better." I didn't say anything that I'd heard Vincent apologize before. He was good at it. The words came easily, with the right intonation of regret and self-awareness. But I'd also seen how quickly those apologies disappeared when someone actually held him accountable. "Dad wants me to set up my own practice," he continued, his voice shifting into lawyer mode. "He's been talking to his contacts, but I need capital. There's a space I've got my eye on down in the Inner Harbor. The rent's manageable, but I need a security deposit, some furniture, a few months cushion while I build a client base." "Vincent, you had a cushy job at a top 10 firm. You walked away from that to chase the entrepreneur dream, and now you're expecting everyone else to clean up the mess." "Walked away?" His eyes widened. "They fired me, Evie. Did they tell you that? I was let go 6 months ago. I've been living in Mom and Dad's basement." I stared at him. That was news, real news. My parents had told me he was doing some consulting work over the summer. They hadn't mentioned anything about a basement. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "I didn't know." "I didn't want you to know." He laughed bitterly. The golden child, lying in his childhood twin bed at 46. "It's humiliating." "Yes," I agreed. "But you've still got your law degree. You could work for someone else." He shook his head. "Not at my age. Not with my profile. I need to build something independent, or I'm done. And Dad says you've got the money to help me launch." Dad said that. He said you're sitting on cash, and family's family, and if I fail, it's not your problem, but if I succeed, the whole family benefits. It's a solid investment, Evie. I'll give you equity." "Vincent, I've been paying Mom and Dad's mortgage for 9 years. Did you know that?" His mouth opened. I watched him process this, watched his brain flip through a mental index of every conversation he'd had with our parents over the past decade, the looks on their faces, the things they'd said about making ends meet. "They didn't tell me," he said finally. "Of course they didn't. Why would they admit they've been taking money from the daughter they call the computer girl?" "I've been paying them rent," Vincent said quietly. $3,000 a month for the basement. They said it was fair market. "They're charging you rent. $3,000 a month." I sat down in the chair across from him. The math was immediate, obvious, and sickening. My parents had been taking rent money from Vincent while I paid their mortgage. They'd been collecting money from both their children, double dipping, lying to both of us. "Vincent," I said slowly, "how long have you known about my apartment?" "Mom told me. She found the deed in your old file. You were supposed to be at work, but she'd come to visit you once, back when you lived in the studio, and she'd seen some papers." He paused. "She'd been snooping. She's always snooping." "Wait, she knew about the apartment months ago, and she never said anything." "Mom's not exactly known for healthy communication, Evie. She wanted to keep you on the hook for the mortgage. If you knew you'd already bought a place, you might have stopped paying." "She's right. I would have." "I know." Vincent leaned back. "And now I'm asking you for money when you've already been giving it away. I'm an idiot, but I don't know what else to do. I can't stay in that house. They're driving me insane. Dad yelling at me about my attitude, and Mom telling me I'm not trying hard enough, and I'm not the kid who bails them out anymore." This was, hands down, the most honest thing Vincent had ever said to me. I stared at him, searching for the con, but his shoulders were slumped and his eyes had gone watery. 20,000, I said finally. I'll give you 20,000, but it's not a gift. It's a loan, and I want a contract 0.5% interest paid over 36 months. And you pay me back before you pay anyone else. You're serious. I'm always serious. I'll take it. Fucking hell, Evie, I'll take it. Don't thank me yet. I have conditions. I'll do anything. I stood up and walked to my desk. I pulled out the lease agreement I'd prepared 5 months ago, the one I'd drawn up in case my parents ever tried to move into my apartment. I never thought I'd need it for Vincent. You sign this, I said, and you're going to do something else for me. Name it. You're going to tell mom and dad the truth about your finances. You're going to tell them you're 46 years old and you need to start making your own way. And you're going to stop letting them use you to pressure me. Vincent swallowed. Evie, if I tell them that, they'll disown me. They won't. They need you too much. They'll pretend to be furious and then they'll find someone else to blame, probably me, since I'm the easy target. But at least it'll be honest. He stared at the contract. His hands were shaking. Do you want me to read it? I asked. He shook his head. No, just hand me a pen. Vincent left at midnight. He'd signed the contract, taken the check I'd given him, and asked if he could sleep on my couch because the train back to Baltimore didn't run until 6 and I said no. He looked hurt but didn't argue. He Ubered to a hotel in Manhattan and texted me the next morning. I'll be gone by 6, thanks for being the adult. That's when my phone started ringing. My mother, of course. Evelyn, what did you do to your brother? Good morning, Mom. Don't good morning me. Vincent came home crying. He said you made him sign something and you refused to even let him sleep on your floor. You're his sister, Evelyn. How could you be so cold? Did he tell you about the loan? Loan? He said you gave him money. I gave him a loan, Mom, with interest and a contract and monthly payments. Because I'm a rational person, and rational people don't hand out cash to family members who've never paid them back. He's your brother. He's 46, Mom. He can take care of himself. He's been through a lot. He lost his job. He's struggling. He lost his job 6 months ago. He didn't tell any of us. He's been sleeping in your basement, and you've been charging him rent. Silence. Then, that's not the point. It is exactly the point. You've been charging him rent while I've been paying your mortgage. You're taking money from both your children and pretending you're not. Evelyn, we never asked you to pay the mortgage. Then why didn't you say no when I offered? Why didn't you tell me to stop? More silence. I could almost see her face, the way she'd look away, the way she'd twist her hands, the way she never admitted she was wrong. Because you were being generous, Evie, and I didn't want to hurt your feelings. You wanted the money. Your father and I, we've had a few lean years. We've been trying to keep up appearances. You know how important appearances are to us. Ida, that's the problem. You've been lying to everyone, including yourselves, and I'm done being part of it. Evelyn, don't you dare. I hung up, then I blocked number 2. I sat on my kitchen floor for an hour after that phone call. I just turned my back on everyone. Vincent's plea, my mother's manipulation, my father's silent complicity. I'd made a choice, and it was the right choice, and I still felt hollow. My phone buzzed. IT was Sarah, my cousin, the only family member I hadn't blocked. She'd sent a photo of her daughter, my niece, wearing a ridiculous polar bear costume for her school play. They're all fighting downstairs, she wrote. Can I come visit you next weekend? I need a break. I texted back, anytime. I opened my contacts and scrolled to a name I hadn't touched since I'd left the dinner table, James Anderson, the man I'd been seeing for the past 8 months. The man who'd never asked me about my family, who'd never pressured me to introduce him, who'd simply listened when I told him I wasn't ready to go home. James, I typed, can you come over tonight? I have something to tell you. His response was immediate. I'll be there at 7. Bring wine? Bring yourself. I'll have food. I didn't want to talk about the money, or the real estate, or the family drama that I wanted to talk about what came next. The life I was finally building for myself, a life without lies. A life where I could answer the question, what do you do, without apologizing for the answer. And maybe, just maybe, a life where I let someone else in. James arrived at 7:15 with a bottle of Sancerre and a bag of takeout from the Thai place 3 blocks over. He'd done this before, shown up without being asked, bringing food and wine, and a quiet kind of presence that never demanded anything. It was why I'd kept him around 8 months in, when every other relationship I'd tried had suffocated under the weight of my silence. Saw your face in the subway this morning, he said, setting the bag on my kitchen island. You look like you were running from something. Figured you needed dinner. I laughed, a genuine laugh, not the brittle one I'd been using on my family. I was running from everything, but I'm done now. Good. He pulled out containers of pad thai and green curry, and something with crispy duck. Eat first, talk later. Or eat first and don't talk. I'm flexible. That was James. He was 42, a structural engineer who designed bridges and never asked me to be anything other than what I was. His parents had divorced when he was 12, and he'd spent holidays shuffling between homes that never felt like either. He understood family tension in a way my exes never had. We ate in comfortable silence. The curry was perfect, spicy enough to make my nose run, creamy enough to feel like a hug. I hadn't realized how hungry I was until I'd finished half of it. Okay, James said, pushing his empty container aside. What happened? I told him, not the full play-by-play. I wasn't ready for that, but enough. The forgotten gift, the apartment key, Vincent showing up at my doorstep, the mortgage payments, the phone call with my mother. James listened without interrupting. He didn't do that thing people do, where they nod sympathetically while planning their own response. He just listened. Your parents charged your brother rent while taking your mortgage money, he said slowly, and they told neither of you. That's the summary. And you gave him a $20,000 loan with interest and a contract. He signed it. Evie. He reached across the island and put his hand over mine. That's the most restrained act of revenge I've ever heard. You basically said, I'll help you, but I'll do it on my terms, and you'll have to be an adult in return. It wasn't revenge. It was practical. Practical, adult, same thing. I'm proud of you. I pulled my hand back, not because I didn't want him touching me, but because I wasn't used to anyone being proud of me. It made my chest tight. You're the first person who said that. Then everyone else is wrong. Ugh. He leaned back in his chair. So what's next? You've cut off the toxic branch. What do you want to grow in its place? That question hung in the air. No one had ever asked me what I wanted. They'd asked me what I could give them, what I could do for them, but never what I wanted. I want to stop living like I'm waiting for something to go wrong, I said. I want to actually enjoy the things I've built. That's a good start. I was about to say something else. Something about how I'd never had a partner who made me feel safe enough to talk about this, when my phone buzzed on the counter. It was the Titan Tech emergency alert system, the one I'd programmed myself. I picked it up. James saw my face change. What is it? Internal access violation, I said. Someone's trying to get into my private code repository. Your work? My personal project. The one I haven't told anyone about. I'd been building something on the side for 18 months to the security protocol I called Sentinel, an AI-driven system that didn't just detect threats but predicted them. It learned the behavior of every system it was attached to, identified anomalies before they could become breaches, and most importantly, kept a record of everyone who touched it. I'd never told my colleagues about Sentinel. Not because I was paranoid, but because I learned at my mother's dinner table that sharing your successes early meant giving people the chance to steal them. I'd finished the core algorithm 6 weeks ago and I'd been waiting to present it to the board, to file the patents, to make it official. And now someone was poking around in the folder where I'd stored the drafts. Evie, James stood up. Do you need to go in? No. I pulled up my laptop from the drawer onto the island. I need to see who it is first. I logged into my remote access portal. The system told me the intrusion had come from an internal IP address, the executive floor, specifically from the CTO's office. Marcus Webb, the man who'd hired me 3 years ago, the man who'd told me I was the most gifted engineer he'd ever worked with. The man who'd also tried to take credit for my architecture on 2 separate occasions before I'd started routing my work through encrypted channels. He's snooping, I said quietly. My CTO. He's trying to get into my project files. Can he get in? No, I set up a decoy folder. IT looks like my main project directory, but it's a honeypot. Every time someone accesses it, the system records their keystrokes, their file requests, and a timestamped log of exactly what they were looking for. James's eyebrows went up. You set a trap. I said a honeypot. I corrected. It's a standard security measure. Standard security measure that's going to get your CTO in a lot of trouble. If he's doing what I think he's doing, I pulled up the log. Marcus had accessed the decoy folder 6 times in the past week. Each time, he tried to open the file labeled Sentinel_core_algorithm_v3. Each time, he'd been denied because I'd locked it with a biometric key that required my thumbprint. But the system had recorded every request, every attempt. And the system had also recorded what Marcus had done after he failed to open the file. He'd forwarded the decoy folder's contents to an external email address, his personal Gmail. James, can you look at this? I turned the laptop toward him. Does this look like standard due diligence to you? He scanned the log. This looks like someone who's trying to steal your work. Exactly. I closed the laptop. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I'd expected to feel panicked or angry, but what I felt was something closer to relief. I'd built the honeypot months ago, half convinced I was being paranoid, half convinced that Marcus would never actually go this far, but he had, and now I had proof. What are you going to do? James asked. Not today, I said. I'm going to let him keep digging. I'm going to wait until he thinks he succeeded, and then I'm going to present Sentinel to the board myself, with the logs attached. That's your plan? Wait. It's called timing. James, if I confront him now, he'll lie, and it'll be my word against his. If I wait until the board presentation, I'll have everything documented. He won't be able to talk his way out of it. James studied me for a long moment. You've been thinking about this for a while. Every night for the past 6 weeks. I knew he'd try something eventually. I just didn't know when. Evie, that's paranoid? Calculating? That's brilliant. James stayed until midnight. We didn't talk about Marcus again. Instead, he told me about his current project, a pedestrian bridge over the Schuylkill River in Philadelphia, designed to look like a folded ribbon. He pulled out his phone and showed me the sketches. I told him about the brownstone's original plumbing and the way the pipes had to be rerouted when I'd renovated the bathroom. It was mundane, domestic, and it made me feel more human than any dramatic conversation ever could. When he left, he kissed me on the forehead, a gesture so tender I almost cried. Call me if anything happens, he said, and I mean anything. I will. You won't, but I'll say it anyway. I watched him walk down the 3 flights of stairs, his footsteps echoing in the stairwell. Then I closed the door and went to my bedroom. I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Marcus and Vincent and my mother. I'd spent my entire life expecting other people to do the decent thing, and they'd proven me wrong every single time. But that was the difference between me and them. I'd learned to prepare. To build traps, TO document. TO make sure that when the moment came, I wasn't the one who ended up blindsided. I checked my phone one last time. Sarah had sent a message. Mom just called me screaming about you. She said you blocked her. Are you okay? I typed back. I'm fine. Don't tell her where I live. Then I set my phone on the nightstand and closed my eyes. I had a board meeting in 3 weeks. A CTO who was trying to steal my life's work. A family that still thought I was the weakest link. And I had a plan. That was enough. 3 weeks until the board meeting, I counted down the days like a prisoner marking time on a cell wall. Marcus had been quiet since his failed breach. No more attempts on my decoy folder, no suspicious emails, but I knew that silence meant something if he was planning his next move. I should have known it wouldn't be subtle. It happened on a Tuesday. I was in the office kitchen, pouring myself a cup of coffee that tasted like burnt regret when my phone buzzed. Vincent's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer. Evie, he said, and his voice sounded different. Softer. Less defensive. I made the first payment. It's in your account. I pulled up my banking app and stared at the number. He transferred exactly $1,000, the first month's installment, on time, without any prompting. Vincent, you actually did it. I told you I would. I found a space. It's not glamorous, a converted warehouse with terrible lighting and a landlord who smells like cigarettes, but it's mine. I signed the lease yesterday. That's really good, Vincent. I got a client too, not a big one, but a real one that a friend of a friend who needs a contract reviewed. He's paying me $300 an hour. He paused. It's not the seven-figure stuff I used to brag about, but it's something, and I wouldn't have done any of it if you hadn't called me out. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Something warm and unfamiliar spread through my chest. IT took me a moment to recognize it. It was pride. Not the performative pride my mother showed at dinner parties, but genuine relief that someone in my family had actually listened. I'm glad, I said. Really? Dad's not speaking to me. He found out about the loan and the contract and threw a fit. Said I'd sold out to my sister. Called me a disgrace. And Mom. Mom's pretending everything's fine. She's already planning Easter dinner like nothing happened. She keeps asking me when you're coming back. Tell her I'll come back when she returns the 9 years of mortgage payments. Vincent laughed, and it sounded like the first real laugh he'd had in months. I don't think she's going to do that. Then I'm staying here. Evie, I have to ask, are you okay? I mean, really okay? Because I've spent 46 years watching you take everyone's bullshit, and when you finally said no, it was like watching someone finally stand up for themselves. But I also know it's hard. I know what it feels like to walk away from them, and I'm doing it now, and it's horrible. I'm okay, I said, and for the first time I meant it. I'm building something, Vincent. My own thing. And if they don't want to be part of it, that's their loss. Atta girl. Call me if you need anything. I mean it. I'm in your corner now. We hung up and I stared at my phone for a long moment. Vincent's first payment, his first client, his first real acknowledgement that he was the problem, not me. It was the kind of progress I'd never expected to see. And then I walked back to my desk and found Marcus Webb standing in my cubicle. Evelyn, he said, with that practice smile he used on investors and clients. I've been looking for you. Marcus. I didn't smile back. What can I do for you? He was a tall man, 52, with a carefully tousled gray beard and the expensive leather shoes that shouted, I've arrived. He'd cultivated an image of benevolent mentorship, the kind of boss who called you champ and asked about your weekend. I'd seen through it on my first day. I've been reviewing your project files, he said, like this was a normal thing for CTO to do. The Sentinel work. I'm impressed. You access my private repository. It's company property, Evelyn. Everything you build on company time belongs to Titan Tech. You know that. I felt my pulse quicken, but my face stayed neutral. I'm aware of the IP policy, but I'd appreciate it if you'd notify me before accessing my personal directory. That's basic professional courtesy. Marcus tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he hadn't solved yet. I'm not trying to steal anything, Evelyn. I'm trying to understand what you're working on. I've been pushing the board to fund more internal innovation, and Sentinel could be exactly what we need. Sentinel isn't ready to present. Then why have you been working on it for 18 months? I didn't answer. I've been working on it because I've been planning to present it to the board myself. I've been planning to file a patent. I've been planning to use it as leverage for a promotion, a partnership, or an exit strategy. Let's have dinner, Marcus said suddenly. This week. We can talk about Sentinel, and I'll explain what I'm thinking. Dinner? My treat. Thursday night. I'll send you the address. He walked away before I could say no. I stood in my cubicle, watching him disappear into the executive hallway, and felt the old familiar heat of anger rising in my chest. He was already planning his presentation. I could see it in the way he'd phrased the invitation, like he was doing me a favor. He wanted to sound me out, to figure out how much I knew, how much I was willing to share. Marcus didn't know about the honeypot. He didn't know I'd been logging his access since day one. He thought I was still the quiet engineer who never stood up for herself. Sarah arrived in Brooklyn that weekend. She'd taken the train from Baltimore, dragging a small suitcase and carrying a bottle of wine that I told her specifically not to bring. You said you were coming for a break, I said, taking the bottle anyway. That doesn't mean you need to bring gifts. Evie, I haven't seen you in 2 years. I'm bringing wine. She hugged me, a real hug, the kind my mother never gave, and stepped into my apartment. Jesus, this place is gorgeous. You bought this? Cash. 1.4 million. 1.4. She turned in a slow circle, taking in the brick walls, the bookcases, the kitchen island. You've been hiding this from everyone. I've been hiding everything from everyone. It's a survival instinct. Sarah sat down on my couch, tucked her legs under her, and looked at me with that expression she'd perfected, the one that said she was about to ask something serious. Mom called me again. She's obsessed with you, Evie. Ever since you blocked her, she's been calling everyone in the family, trying to figure out where you live and what you're doing. Are you going to tell her? No, I told her I don't know. Sarah shrugged. Technically, I know you live in Brooklyn, but I don't have your address. I made sure of that. I wanted to be able to honestly say I didn't know. Sarah, I'm your cousin. I'm supposed to protect you, not hand you over to the wolves. We talked for hours. Sarah was the only person in my family who'd ever asked about my work without wanting to prove something. She'd studied social work and now ran a community center in East Baltimore, the kind of place that helped families in crisis, that found housing for homeless teenagers, that did the work that most people pretended didn't exist. Your mother is obsessed with you, Sarah repeated, over dinner at a Thai place a few blocks away. And not in a good way. She keeps talking about how you've abandoned the family, how you're selfish, how you've forgotten who you are, but it's not about you, Evie. It's about her. She can't accept that you've made choices she can't control. Bigger than the mortgage payments? Way bigger. Mom's always been about control. She controlled Dad. She controlled Vincent. She tried to control you. Now you're out of her reach, and she can't stand it. What about Dad? Is he still ignoring me? Dad is Dad. Sarah shrugged. He's never been the one making the calls. Mom runs that house. He just goes along with whatever she says. But he's also the one who told me you'd bought an apartment. He was proud of you. Evie, he didn't say it in so many words, but I could tell. I digested that am-I father, proud of me. The man who'd never said a kind word about my career, who dismissed my work as computers, who'd let my mother control every interaction. Maybe he was just as trapped as I'd been. Your mother thinks Vincent will fail, Sarah continued. She's already telling everyone the loan is going to ruin your relationship, that Vincent's going to screw up and you'll be vindictive and never speak to him again. He already made his first payment. Did he actually? He did. On time. $1,000. Sarah's eyebrows shot up. Evie, that's huge. Vincent's never paid back a dime to anyone in his life. I know. I'm trying not to get my hopes up. Don't get your hopes up, but don't discount it either. People change. Evie, that I've seen it in my work. Sometimes they need someone to believe in them. She reached across the table and touched my hand. And sometimes they just need someone to say, I see you. That night, after Sarah had fallen asleep on my couch, I sat in the dark and thought about Marcus's dinner invitation. Thursday night point 3 days away. I'd agreed to it because saying no would have been suspicious, but I hadn't decided what I was actually going to do. I could play along. Pretend I was impressed by his interest. Let him think I was going to hand over Sentinel willingly. I could stall, buy myself time until the board meeting. Or I could confront him. Tell him I knew about the intrusion, the emails, the theft attempt. Force him to show his hand early. But that wasn't the right move. Confronting him now would let him prepare a defense. Waiting meant I could catch him off guard. I pulled up the honeypot logs on my laptop. Marcus had accessed the decoy folder again last night, 3 a.m., the latest attempt. He tried to bypass the encryption with a brute force attack, a clumsy, desperate move that told me he was running out of patience. He didn't know Sentinel existed on a separate server. He didn't know I'd been testing it with real client data, building a proof of concept that would blow his stolen copy out of the water. He thought he was chasing the prize when the prize was already in a different room. Thursday night, I thought, I'll go to dinner, listen to his pitch, and let him think I'm still the quiet engineer who's never stood up for herself. And then I'll show him exactly what I've been building.